This is Revel Rosz, and I want to introduce you to a book I just published called the Divergent Magic Grimoire. You're listening to PRAGMAGICK. The following episode will discuss the creation, conjuration, and construction of this Divergent Magic Grimoire, which you can now purchase in hardback form at Amazon. We will be breaking down the schema, or the outline, I've compiled and designed for you to create, ruin, deconstruct, and reveal your own rites and rituals that make up your own personal lore. The bulk of my free-flowing breakdown and conversation was from a recent PRAGMAGICK Liminalstream on the PRAGMAGICK YouTube channel, which I will have in the show notes. Edited, somewhat constructed, a bit more coherently, to bring you into the whims and the wonders of this Divergent Magic Grimoire. Within this episode, not only will I be breaking down its schema, its many uses, its intentions, but we'll also hear from the likes of Jenny Rocky on how she's utilizing the grimoire in a very pragmatic and magical way, but also some feedback from creator and author Derek Hunter regarding what this could mean at large for those willing to participate in such an experiment. And, of course, how I'm utilizing this schema. You know, the Divergent Magic Grimoire comes from a user. It comes from a customized, organic, and organized process of how I bridge the magical into my artistic praxis, into my breathing practice, and into my life practice. But you know, as the creator and designer of this grimoire, I get muffled and muddled within the stratosphere of spectrum that this could be utilized for. And so, well, thanks to Luxistrata from the Lux Occult podcast, I was able to whip up some quick copy of how this may be parlayed to the rest of the world. So without further ado, I'll let Luxistrata of the Lux Occult podcast give you a quick rundown on what exactly is the Divergent Magic Grimoire before we break into the nitty-gritty.
Ross over at WeTheHallowed.org and the PRAGMAGICK podcast. He's put together a pretty cool magical tool recently, which I will tell you a little bit about here. From PRAGMAGICK creator and perpetual fuck-up, his words, Revel Rosz, comes the Divergent Magic ANARCHIC Grimoire, a workbook which offers a framework to create, construct, disrupt, and rejuvenate the rites and rituals that form your personal lore. It's divergent because it doesn't adhere to a single current, reflecting the diverse nature of each person's individuation process. Additionally, it's divergent because the creator is a neurodivergent schemer, always seeking to merge the pragmatic with the magical. The Grimoire's 40-plus ritual cycles encompass metaphysical frameworks for various aspects, be it artistic projects, health habits, or creating deconstructing magical rituals. Each rite cycle can delve into the neurotic details of a single step, making the Grimoire a major rite in itself. The only rule? Customize everything. Let this tool assist your anarchic praxis in ritualizing the mundane, echoing the profane, and resonating with the sacred rites that shape your personal lore. Hardbacks are available on Amazon now with soft covers to come. You can contact pragmagick@gmail.com to be part of the Grimoire's own deconstruction and rebirth. Alright, fuck yeah.
So again, thank you to Luxa for sharing that with her listeners. This has been sort of a slow rolling out process of a big reveal since publishing this book. And as we get into the schema, its outline, how I constructed it, I wanted to give a big shout out and thanks to all the patrons and friends who have been along since the ride. If you'd like to be in the skinny of all the goings on, from the Grimoire to the music you're currently listening to, and its many uses of creation that I've put forth into the world, then become a patron. For as little as $1 a month, you'd be supporting all of these wondrous works and huge art barfs into the universe. Again, thank you to all the patrons. Again, that's at patreon.com/pragmagick. A quick way to get to the book is, of course, in the show notes, or just visit pragmagick.com. And if you're the type that likes some visual aids with what we are about to speak on, then check out the Liminalstream, which is also in the show notes. So, as we get into this Liminalstream and my breaking down of the Divergent Magic Grimoire's uses, applications, and what the fuck I mean by the certain lexicon or vernacular that I use within these rite cycles, I'd like you, listener, to keep in mind a few things of the following stream. We discuss the paperback version, which is not in print any longer due to Amazon's printing errors on their end, considering margins. If you do have a paperback, and I have many still, consider yourself lucky. It's a super rare print, and I would love to share those with listeners. If you would like a copy of the Grimoire and cannot afford it, don't want to pay the $23, or simply would like to test it out, please contact me at pragmagick@gmail.com. I want to get it in your hands. I want you to use it. I want you to have fun with it. And speaking of uses, to break up a lot of my rambling about the Grimoire, stay tuned for Jenny Rocky's really lovely, interesting approach on how she's starting to use it. So without further ado, let's break into the Divergent Magic Grimoire, and thank you for your support and listenership. Haunt on. The Divergent Magic Anarchic Grimoire, a workbook and schema to create and conjure your own anarchic rituals from Pragmagic. How's that for a mouthful of a title? Colloquially, we'll just call it the Divergent Magic Grimoire because it's divergent for a few reasons. The first reason being that it is not unique to a certain current. It is unique unto itself because it is user-operated and created. And it is divergent, well, because I'm finally coming out of the closet and discussing, I think, my long storied mental health bouts, which I will just use the term neurodivergent to quell any kind of diagnoses or shudders about psychology, because I am not a psychologist. I have seen many. A lot of them have different opinions. And one thing is very true is that I've got some brain disfluencies, and this here grimoire has come from my own personal unique schema and praxis to ordain the day, to ordain rituals, to ordain habits. It's very much a user-operated manual. And yeah, it is now available on Amazon. I'll be talking about its schema. I'll be talking about its bits and bops, its bric-a-brac, all of the production fun, its woes, its whims, and all of that, and what got us here today to it being finally on Amazon and me finally talking about it live. It's been quite a raucous few months, learning the ins and outs of independent publishing via Amazon. I am lukewarm about Amazon. A lot of that has to do with my kind of grouch about utilizing such a company, but I digress. You can find it on Amazon. The reason why I haven't come out right and really promoted it is if you are a patron or a friend, you've known about it. If you follow hauntmanual.com, which is my writing, I've incepted, I don't think that's a word, but we'll use it. I've hidden some Easter eggs in there, and some folks have found them and bought them already, even without me kind of super launching it into whatever the social media digital ether is. So I want to give a big thanks to those folks, especially Elena, Sorcerer's homie, for all your help with the bouts of checking the gaffes and the printer margins and, you know, the now ill-fated paperback that was silently available, but we'll talk more about that later. And Jenny Rocky for purchasing one, and folks that I'm not too familiar with, one especially who left a very fair and very cool review for the first one, albeit it was for the paperback. So let's keep that in mind when we go over the review in a bit. It was always intended to be a hardback. And there it is, 223 pages. And we'll go through the schema, but the bulk of the book are these rite cycles. And of course, there's a few pages, a forward, and then me discussing what each quadrant, each cell to fill in what I mean by why I organized it that way. The lexicon, what I mean by certain words, because no matter how hard I tried to laymanize, I guess, or be more, I think, hospitable to folks that are new to magic or new to even me and my way of writing, still I couldn't get past some of the more poetic pish posh that is kind of in here. So we'll go over that and talk about the terminology. Let's dive into what the Divergent Magic Grimoire is, or at least why I created it. So, after years of working with Eric Millar, personal hero and collaborator of We The Hallowed, we both kind of started We The Hallowed Press, which was basically a label for independent publishing. And it really started with the We The Hallowed zine that I put out in 2015. And that zine would kind of become the hauntological basis of what this grimoire is. And what I mean by that is the zine was intended to be additions from members coming and going that we updated and repurposed and put out bi-yearly and treated it like that was our religious scripture. And the funny thing about this religious scripture is that it was ruined, it was discontinued, it was deconstructed, every time it grew. So it was this permeating kind of almost amiable, amorphous thing. And I love that idea because We The Hallowed, the backbone, the ethos of it is that we are all anarchic, individualistic, multicultural, multi-everything practitioners, really artists with metaphysical minds, and how we construct and parlay the art gods. And that is the backbone of what We The Hallowed is. And, after working with We The Hallowed Press with Eric J. Millar, first putting out the famous now Disruption Generator, which is now on its 5-year anniversary. How amazing is that? 5 years ago, first outlet press and We The Hallowed Press book. And here we are with my first one. And I couldn't be more excited, but I've worked, hand in hand with Eric as he constructed and worked with Amazon Publishing or Lulu Press or any of these print-on-demand companies. And with the kind of advent of the pandemic and how things have changed since I've moved around so much, We The Hallowed became less in person. It became less localized to put out the zine. We started doing more digital releases or these print-on-demand things. And, I kind of lost touch with that zine idea. And if you've been following my haunt manual writings or my hauntomancy workings, it really was akin to, communing with a past self of forgotten projects, of, forgotten synapses and kind of truncated ideas and drives and stuff for deeply artistic things. And so it was only natural that this zine idea popped up again. That with the confluence of me getting really sick of buying notebook after notebook, moleskins, all these different kind of journals, no kind of form or function. So anytime I go back and I look at these hauntomantic workings, or I'm working with like the Spectre of Self of 2017, there's no form or function to my magical writings or how they're organized or how they're, kind of constructed. Really, it's really a shoot from the hip process. Every ritual has its own different kind of documentation. And so I got annoyed with it and decided I would test Amazon Publishing and create my own personal journals. And so it started with these, which are the spare planchette from PRAGMAGICK. And they are just blank journals that you can get on Amazon. I don't think anyone's bought them. It was never about money. It was more about, wholly customizing my own notebooks and everything. So you can find this on Amazon. It was all a test to create a schema or an organizational process, and then even the matter, right? The somatic material that I write on. I just wanted to customize everything. So I created these blank journals, call them daily grimoires. They're totally blank. I put them out to basically just start using them no matter what. They're cheap. And it was great. I have now customized things. I'm using Kindle Direct Publishing for personal use and creating my own cool, unique, journals. When I did that, there was a part of me that's like, well, if I publish it, people are going to find it. I wonder how they'll see it, or what would they use it for? And that's when Mary, she has seen over the years me discuss all of these ritualized processes that I utilize or have created. And she came up with the idea of like, why don't you, instead of a blank journal, put together an actual workbook utilizing my schema that I've culled from years and years of use, whether it be for health habits, mainly artistic processes, but also, magical workings, which all of them kind of fall under, life is magic, art is magic. And so I went running with that idea and began formulating and constructing for a couple of months, kind of quietly, not talking about it unless to close friends, especially Eric Millar, who has helped kind of the back end of the, formatting process. And, I came up with this, and I use the ritual schema that's in here personally. Again, if it's not about the money, it wasn't about kind of marketing it to people. It was like, how cool is this that I can actually have my schema and outline for rituals and have them beautifully organized in a hardback, and I don't have to give Moleskine any more of my money. But as I was constructing it, it was before the holidays, and I thought, what a cool holiday present or gift to patrons and friends and families. And so I got real quick into, how would they use it? How would people that are pretty much new to kind of magically mundane things, right? Or thinking of every ritual in a day in a kind of artistic, magical way. Basically to illuminate the mundane, to document their personal lore, like what makes you tick, what are your habits, what do you want to learn, what do you want to kind of create and conjure into the world. And so I came up and basically organized this schema with them in mind, but also it's coming from me, so I have to be able to use it and want to use it. So I think what came out was very unique. So that is the construction of the Divergent Magic Grimoire. And as you can see, I'm very proud of the printing. One thing I wanted to talk about was, why I enjoy the margins for anybody to write in. I'm a big note taker and editor, so I like the margins and space to do that. But I got a little fun with it. The printing didn't work for the paperback so well. For some reason, Amazon goofed the paperback version, and I'll show you here. I have a couple. Now, the covers and everything look great. The problem was the schema and my designs, the margins aren't there, and they bleed over the top and go into the crease. So, I had to unpublish it. So if you were one of the few that grabbed a paperback, still very usable, just not up to my standards or, how I wanted it to be presented. So I will get back to working on the paperback and publish it again. It will be cheaper than the hardback. The hardback's only $23. Why 23? I don't think I need to answer that. But I will publish it again. I do have a few copies of this very rare misprint paperback that I would love to share with folks who are interested in a rare misprint. So please contact me if you'd like one. The other thing is I want to get this in people's hands more than, money is concerned. I have ways to give a deep discount to people if $23 is a little hard, which it is for me sometimes. I totally get it. And I also, I am able to work with you and give you PDFs, or if you want to print them and bind them yourself. And these are all in the spectrum of future kind of variations of how to get this workbook. But it was important to me to at least, get the hardback in people's hands. And Jenny Rocky, who I want to thank as well for purchasing one early and working through the schema and whatnot, she had mentioned she was worried about writing in a hardback. And I totally get that. Like, it looks nice and clean, and I'm sure a lot of people have. I mean, she's a librarian too, so I totally get why she doesn't want to write in a hardback. But the point of this is to be affordable and yours, and to trash and to ruin and to work through things and struggle bust through things, so that you create and log and really refine the rituals that make up your day or your creative praxis. So please, you are not offending anybody, especially me, by scribbling or crossing out some of the terminology and putting your own. The number one rule in here, it says very explicitly, is customize everything. Rule number one. So let's go ahead and break into the schema and the outline. I thought this would be a good time to kind of look at what these rite cycles are, how I compose them. When you break open the Divergent Magic Grimoire, it is yours. It is yours to create, burn, I don't care. Like, it is whatever you utilize for your ritual processes. This is meant to just help document, organize, and work through. So it does begin with a foreword where I go a little deeper onto what I had just said about the creation, why it was made, maybe some elements of, why me? Why would anyone buy something like this from me? Especially as somebody that is so I would say gregarious about anarchic magic, about not being a part of a tradition and cooking magic like a recipe. But that's just me. Of course, I respect all traditions and currents. And I hope that those that are enmeshed in traditions and currents find use with this too. This doesn't exclude any current. It doesn't exclude any magical praxis. This is just kind of a fun way to, document and work through them. And let's talk about the praxis outline. So that is your first page in the rite cycles. So real quick, the book mainly is made up of rite cycles for you to customize. The rite cycles are front and back 2 pages, and there's about 40 plus of them in the 223 page book. And they are as follows. You have the praxis outline, which is right here. Behind that, you have your declarations and observations. And a month later, which you can come back to document, any kind of results, I suppose. Even though I'm very result-less in my intentions, it's more about observations of how they kind of permeated and worked. And then a method that I created called the Disolver Eco Resonar method. And we'll dive deep into this because I think this might be the one that needs most explaining. So we will get to that. And then behind the Disolver Eco Resonar method, you have a tethers box. And this is basically your notes or kind of meandering tides and tithes of what each cycle. So I want to say the book and its 40 plus rite cycles that go like this the book itself can be one huge magical ritual. I plan on using one of the books, as I have been, for a record that I'm making, and breaking it down by songs, recording processes, my audiomancy practice. So one book will be this next Revel Rosz record, and it will be full of how I organize and made all of these. Or the book you should start small with and just, Elena brought this up when we were talking yesterday. She said, I think it's great for people that, to wrap their head around at first, to start small. And by start small, I mean, use the rite cycle at first for a stretching exercise. Use it for, a song composition, or even like how, a fine art painting and what your intentions are, what materials you're using, all of that. You don't have to go as big as me and thinking of the book as one huge rite cycle, even though it could be said that if you fill the pages up with many different rites, the book itself was a complete rite cycle and how you honed your magics or whatever. So it leaves a lot of room for interpretation and for use, and that is by design, because I want neurodivergent and neurotypical people alike, deeply traditional, irreverent magicians alike, artists of all types, non-artists, but maybe, people that, I don't know, do something other than art. I can't even fathom that. But, I want everybody to be able to use it and to get some use out of it. So I try to do my best not to exclude, and to help kind of parlay the many into its uses. So let's break down the rite cycle, the praxis outline. So when you get to this first page of the rite cycles, in the book, I have what I mean by each section. For every part of the rite cycle, it's laid out, it's my definitions for it, and I hope that it helps kind of direct or, give you some inspiration on how you would kind of organize or work out your own schema with it. So, of course, the title of rite and the date. You should name your ritual and think of it as a song or a short story, no matter what it is. Give it character and make it memorable. You will most likely give the ritual an entire arc in your own story, because that's what this book is. It's a collection of your lore, of your personal lore, your habits and yourself that maketh thee, to be goofy about it, Of course, we get to the intention of what this rite cycle is. I emphasize the point of being pithy and to distill the objective. Meditate on the desire, use direct language and concise language. And I think pithy is a big thing, and that's kind of throughout this journal or this magical book, is a kind of meditation on distilling and being more direct and not allowing, especially me, the whims and wonders and the tentacles of chaos of brainwaves and thoughts to kind of scramble what you are trying to work on. A big thing here is specters, this box. The reason why I use the word specters. I say specters, of course, is just an English spelling of the ghostly word. It just looks cooler, let's be real. Connoting both the paranormal and hauntological personification of the other. And by hauntological personification, I mean this specter that of which you are communing with for each rite cycle. It could be a deity, it could be a living person, it could be a past self. In my hauntomancy practice, the specter working was communing with my 2017 self. And that's what I mean by hauntological personification. So the reason why I chose the word specters is that it gives the gamut, the full spectrum, the specter spectrum of who you parlay, what personas even, what characters that you will be, parlaying with for this working. So I think that's one of the confusing elements that feedback I've gotten is like, do I talk to ghosts? It's like, well, yeah, if you want to. But I really just mean specters in the sense that it is any kind of personification of either yourself or the other. And that's all I mean. From Hecate to young Keats, it doesn't matter who you're parlaying with. There's a place to put it and to declare it. Talismans. That is basically just your magical tools, your artifacts, the ephemera to be utilized specific for this ritual. Of course, in many of my rituals, I have far more than what the box allows for talismans. In that case, I just use the tethers page right here to jot any kind of extra stuff. Or one thing that I like to do and have been doing, if you have another journal that you don't mind really just kind of beaten up, in my case, I would use one of my specific $10 pragmagic journals. I would work out all of the background mess and meandering neuroses of each practice and then kind of distill it and refine it in this book to kind of catalog it and go back to and research, especially in the Hantomancy workings. I'm creating new versions of spells already casted. Guys, sounds so goofy saying spells and casted, I just realized, but it's par for the course. But you know, magical workings that I did when I was younger and bringing them to the present source. And when I say, you know, spells and all this, I'm truly talking of artistic processes, because art is magic. To make something manifest from a thought into the materium is, you know, give me a better definition than that. So a lot of it bleeds into my artistic processes of why I use this schema. A lot of it also through my studies and use of actual magical currents and the reverence of it. You know, I use a schema to help me kind of push through a Santissima Muerte novena that I was working on. You know, any kind of outside thing, this is a way to kind of break it down and go through the minutia a little bit closer to home and treat it like a recipe. And this is your cookbook. The rite cycle, title of rite, intention, specters, talismans, all very obvious, I think. You have then the evocation sequence. And it was funny, I was listening to Ali Words talk about their wonderful technomancy language that they were doing. And they had mentioned invocation and evocation, not really like needing to commune that kind of third mind of both of them. And at the same time, I was working on this and had, you know, thought of that myself when I was really breaking down the schema of a magical praxis. I find very little difference in the invocation and evocation process, as within, so without, right? As above, so below. So this is a way you can obviously say it's an invocation. You can say it's an evocation. The choice is yours. But for me, a lot of the time, it would be the invo-evo. And the reason why I distilled it into 9 steps, which you can see there, is pretty obvious. I think it's very usual reasons. A lot of it takes from kind of the novena, the Christian novena, but it also, you know, takes from Acts of 3 and the rule of 3. Praxis within praxis itself is a rite. And so when you're kind of distilling and breaking down these steps, you're noticing that things work in these acts and these kind of like cyclical steps of pattern of poetry. And for me, it's always made sense in that kind of pattern recognition way to outline the 3 major components of a ritual and then distill those 3 major components into 3 distinct steps of each. Again, distillation is a huge part of it. If we transpose, you know, these seemingly minor exercises to the multitudes, like if we transpose the idea of distillation of these, you know, these invocation, evocation steps into these kind of 9 things, it's crazy to see how that transposes into your daily life and to other kind of mundane tasks and operations. And you kind of see this common chord through discordant one note kind of disparate things. And I think for me, a lot of what I've found in breaking down the schema and trying to distill kind of the arms and legs of a ritual, I now can't not see the mundane or the habits of my day as rituals and as, you know, 9 complete steps or, you know, acts of 3. And it's definitely helped my scatterbrained mind, and it's been cool to see it transpose into everyday life. But yeah, it's if we begin to treat the mundane as well as the heavy as rituals or as rites, we enrich the fleeting. Notice this workbook also acts in 3s, from the sections to the sequencing alone. So another rule of 3, fun little tidbit. And then of course you have your sigil section. And for those familiar, I kind of give it away by having Austin Osman Spare in the center of the planchette on my PRAGMAGICK logo, a logo that Ryan Brewer and I designed. He did a lot of the legwork, but something I've been using for years, and he's been a great source of inspiration as far as artistry and magic and that communion between the two. And of course, a sigil is something that just permeates through all of my work because there's nothing more directly art and magic, you know, than a sigil. And so in these rite cycles, you have a space to sketch one out and to sigilize every rite. And I give you a space in the back of the book so you can categorize and kind of file your sigils. So in the back of the book, you have your sigil alphabet, or the alphabet of desire, as Austin Osman Spare would say. And something I've always wanted in my journals was just kind of a quick, cool little addendum or something where I can go back and file these sigils away, rather than always tattooing them on myself because I only have so much skin. But yeah, so that's the end of the book. Has a sigil alphabet for you, and I think it's just a fun little categorization technique. Of course, how you make your sigil is up to you. I give the, you know, the famous Grant Morrison at DisinfoCon kind of explanation of it that, you know, was really inspired by Austin Osman Spare. It's in the book, but you know, my personal way of doing them is different than that, and everybody's will be. And I also wanted to allow the gamut of, you know, not every sigil needs to look like a sigil. Like, they can be highly designed little works of art, as far as like the Revel Rosz sigil was a drawing that I did, very deeply charged. Or, you know, your classic sigil for We The Hallowed that just looks like a sketchy sigil. Before we continue, and since I have just described the bulk of the praxis outline for you to customize in the Divergent Magic Grimoire, I thought I'd share a very lovely use and rite drafted by Jenny Rocky, who has been so instrumental and invaluable along this path of creating this grimoire. So check out how Jenny's using it. It's a perfect example of being pragmatic and instilling a bit of that magical lore within your day-to-day.
Hey Keats, on this lovely Saturday, I tried my hand at constructing a rite. using the Grimoire. And so I'm going to read it to you to see if I'm on the right track of what you think is the format. So for title of the rite, I call it Divine Cookery. And the intention is to infuse meal preparation with ritual and reverence as if I'm feeding the goddess in me. Therefore, I need to give it to myself like an offering. And the Spectre would be Erica Badu. Her vibe in persona and all that jazz. The talismans would be like music, songs in a playlist, or a piece of, sound audiomancy, something to kind of listen to meditatively as I prepare the meal. And candles and regalia. So I would wear something that makes me feel like this is a ritual and I need to be in finery. And so the sigil is really cool. It's like kind of like a pitchfork with candles on each of the fork tips and like a string of pearls around the neck of the fork. And then so the invocation, evocation, I don't know what invo and evo. Oh, I guess, I don't know. Sequences. Number one, lots of these would happen during the week. And then I would do the actual meal prep on a Sunday. So during the week, I would choose the recipe, choose the regalia, finery to wear, visualize the meal prep from start to finish, and that way I can kind of work out any kinks to make sure I have everything I would need. Choose my songs and playlists. It could be that the same song gets used every time, so there's sort of, list of songs, there's sort of this association that builds on itself and compounds. On Saturday night, get the tools and talismans all together, and then on the day of Sunday, for the actual ritual, say a little prayer or intentional statement, cook, clean up, and then sit down to eat it and document the meal, kind of inspired by, what's her name? Lux Estrada. She takes those beautiful pictures of meals that she makes. So that's kind of like where I'm going with it. So I figure I'll try that soon, and then I'll fill out the declarations, observations, and the DER, and the tethers. So yeah, I feel like this framework is going to be a good jumping off place for me to get into some rituals.
So yeah, that's pretty much the rite, the praxis outline. That's your first page. And then behind it, you have your declarations. And I loved what Elena told me, Sorcerer's Homie. She sent me some notes about the terminology that I'd love to share. The declarations is basically the praxis, prayers, chants, decrees, song lyrics, mission statement, etc. It's the text of the rite, especially the text or language, the words that you say or have written. And I liken it to if you were to use the declarations for something as simple as a health habit, like a stretching routine. This is where I would say out loud, my deeper, kind of more fleshed out intention. And here's a space for it. So you can go super magical with it. You can go super pragmatic with it. it observes all of that. And speaking of observes, and then we have our observations. Observations are an important part for my work, especially because of sensation, stimulation, basically somatic kind of things, stimulation, really, that happens during a rite, or what, when composing this, the kind of affectations, the emotions that kind of come up when doing it. But also it's about noting and jotting down the things outside of yourself. I think this is the most important factor, and that a lot of us forget just how many variables outside of ourselves when we're practicing, these rites that we create or are doing, that are so traditional and mired in age and currents. We forget the variables of what the room temperature felt like. We forget the variables of how my body felt kneeling for this, or blah blah blah, and we kind of look past those. And I think having a space to really jot down these seemingly mundane things it comes from animal tracking in a way. An animal tracker's journal is heavily concerned with their somatic conditions as they are with the animals they are tracking, because in a way, when you're communing with these things, whether it be yourself or the other, I feel like these variables are shared, and there's an atmospheric kind of spectrum of which you are communing with as well. And it's important to just make a note of these things. So there's your space to do so. Then I also have the 1 month later at the bottom. So the 1 month later is a space to come back a month later after the ritual was performed and cataloged, to come back and just jot down adjectives of how they resolved, or how they resounded since performing this rite. And I like to say adjectives because I don't want to get mired in a lot of the ephemeral kind of observations too much, because in the future, even looking back further than a month later, these words will kind of inject quickly what I was meaning, instead of having to go back in time fully and immerse myself in all of the writings. So it's just a space to quickly kind of jot down what the resounding effects of the rite were. You have your praxis, your declarations and observations, which we just went over, and now the DER method. So the DER method. When constructing a ritual, artistic project, or health habit utilizing this workbook, you most likely will struggle to achieve the aim in one go. Thus, every praxis sheet is married with the Disolver Eco Resonar method to help make opaque your headaches, or to dissolve your headaches, to echo your successes, and to resonate those intentions, especially ones that are found that weren't intended but have now superseded the original intention. There is a page that's designated and illustrates ways to do that. So this is one that has come up with people that have the book already of, how am I supposed to use this? So I just wanted to clear up some confusion. Just because the cycle is married with a Disolver Eco Resonar doesn't mean you need to use the Disolver Eco Resonar for that rite cycle. Perhaps the rite was simple, it was erudite, succinct. There's no reason to struggle bus. There's no reason to kind of jot down or work through or mutate it or change it. This method, my intention of utilizing it has always been because I like to really get into the weeds. With the Hontomancy workings, I'm recreating methods I used in the past. And so this method is how I do that. I'll use this method to get a rite cycle that feels like I'm just not getting it as far as like how to do it, especially if it's from a current outside an anarchic, personal one. So this is basically a ordained space to work through all that. And it's dissolve, echo, and resonate. And I have a page in here that breaks it down for you if you needed to reference what I mean by the method. So dissolver or dissolve. What elements of the praxis do you need to make opaque, to see past, to transcend your intended ends? And Elena made a mention for dissolver, admissions of obstacles to the rites work that should be resolved. I think of these as the trees, as in can't see the forest for the trees. So I love that. Yeah, these are things that you must see past or you're struggling to get through. My most recent podcast and videomancy work was the fully analog audio sigil. Which took a lot of work, but it was an audiomancy thing, all composed and constructed on 4-track. And it used a lot of magical elements, but there was a lot of struggle busing with me kind of getting lost in the weeds, not seeing the forest through the trees, getting more obsessive about the trees themselves, I think, than the actual ritual. And I put a big thing in the declarations, which was, the shadow work part of it. Discuss the past year's Hontomancy and see through the shadow. Stop getting stuck in the past. Because the Hontomancy thing, I play a tape of me 20 years ago in 2004 saying Happy New Year. And it brought up a lot of really rough and tumble past grumps. And it started permeating into the work, and I was starting to kind of hate the entire process. I was beginning to hate this whole Hontomantic kind of oeuvre, and I after some meditation and really looking and seeing what the hell is keeping me from wanting to finish this, and it was I couldn't get past the past, and so I had to do another kind of rite cycle to do that. But that's me. That's how I illustrated it. That's, how I interpreted and used it. You, of course, can use it any which way. But yeah, I needed to basically echo the prospector, which was the prospect of 2024 and not the specter of 2004. So I'll go back to this. And echo is where we're at. These are actions, these are movements, roar the elements that worked to have them amplified and repeat. Josephine McCarthy always reminds us patterning strengthens ritual actions. And that's all this book really kind of is. But it's especially the Disolver Eco Resonar method and especially the echo. So patterning the strengths and patterning the things that, blew past, that felt you were barking into the ether of some great kind of work, I know for me, it was working on the Hontomancy cassette tape. I needed to echo more of getting lost in live drum experiments with delay pedals and amps. And I was having so much fun. And I ended up utilizing those test recordings as part of the score for the cassette tape audio sigil. And that just showed me I was so excited to work and be experimental and have fun. And that's what I needed to remember. That's what I need to punch. With every dissolution, there are sediments that persist. Jot down the minutiae, the bric-a-brac of your praxis that reflected the most benevolence and aim to echo them. When I transpose this working into the Revel Rosz record, I already started echoing that. I will sit behind the drum set or I'll sit with the guitar and get back to my basics with the audiomancy, truly not tethered to a song or to a structure, and just have fun getting lost in Stranger. That echo from that practice of the audio sigil that carried over and echoed into the next rite. As conductor of this choir, it is time to rejoice in call and response. What verses, rhythms, machinations do you need to have your inner choir sing back at you? What do you need to keep performing? These are actions. These are movements. It's a big thing for me in the echo part. It's not the thoughts so much. It's not the kind of, mercurial kind of matter. When I think of echo, when I want something to happen, I make it happen. And like an echo, it claps back. But it doesn't linger. I have to keep clapping to get that echo. So it's a way to kind of jot down the actual like physical interaction that you utilize that worked within the praxis. Of course, you can interpret it any which way. And I love that Elena brought up Josephine McCarthy, who told us patterning strengthens ritual actions. And knowing this, what actions will you repeat in the future? And Resonar is probably the most up for interpretation, the most poetic, because it is something that has kind of resolved over the years of me utilizing this method. And I say perhaps through the inspection and deconstruction of gaffes, and then through the revelry of reflection, a revelatory whim materializes, a revelation that encapsulates the micro and macro of your initial intention and the praxis as a whole. By that measure, a new resonance looms. So what is it that you hope wallows and lingers on from this praxis? What is it that you would like to congeal into the atmosphere that emanates without you? What is the specter of this praxis? Be it either magical or pragmatic, what do you wish to haunt on? And I think after you struggle bus through a rite cycle, you do your rite, you jot it down, but something's just not clicking. You struggle bus through the dissolver and the echo, and you come to a revelatory moment where you're like, wow, I think my initial intention was off. This is because I deconstructed it, because, something wasn't working. I've literally discovered a new kind of beautiful, wondrous, revelatory thing that I wish to resonate. That unlike echo, I don't need to keep acting so it slaps back. It will just resonate after performing. So that's what I mean by DER. Patrons will know that I've used the DER method, basically like a tarot pull. So I've used the DER method on Haunt Manual for the huge eclipse working we did out in New Mexico. Pulled the cards for this big working and still utilized what I meant by to dissolve, to echo, to resonate with my Marseille deck. I've also used it with the disruption generator on Patreon, which has been really fun. This DER method transposes and kind of mutates and permeates through different magical workings, tarot reading to actual audiomancy. So it's there for you to kind of help deconstruct and rediscover your wants and your whims of the rite cycle of which you're working through and are not feeling. That's an intention of mine. Again, this book, I don't want to put too much of myself on it or tell you how to do it. I hope the cells, the sectors of the rite cycles are not directing you to act, to follow. I just hope they inspire. I hope they help you create your own schema. You can use the bones of this to help you fortify your own magical journal on how to organize and create these things and experiment with things. So there you have it. The bulk of the Divergent Magic Anarchic Grimoire is of these rite cycles. From the praxis outline to the observations to the DER method for ritual, creation, ruination, and rebirth. I am starting a kind of community kind of centered around one of these. So if you get yourself a Divergent Magic book, please email me, pragmagic@gmail.com. I don't know exactly where it'll be, if it'll be a small Discord group or if it'll just be, somewhere else. But it will be a collection of us that are working through the schema, are breaking it down, are sharing how we're using it, and also, all in a means to kind of construct the second volume that is going to be far more, apropos, I think, than this one, whenever that is kind of created. So there will be a community around this. I can always answer questions. If you bought a Divergent Magic Grimoire, thank you so much, especially to those that purchased the gapped up print of the paperback. And I did want to share this. So like I said, I silently put this out because I had to publish it to get it quicker. Amazon, like the proofs that I would have gotten would have taken far too long to get. And I really wanted these close to the holidays so I can send them to patrons and friends and family. So I silently published it in early December. And doing that, some folks found it and bought it without me, truly kind of promoting it or anything. And someone left a really lovely review, and I think they kind of distill what it's all about outside of my pish posh word salad, big long lectures of what it's supposed to be. So I thought I'd share that real quick. Let's see. So I want to thank whoever this was. I believe their username was just V, which is really cool. And yeah, they left a 4-star review, which I think is absolutely, way too kind, considering after reading this review, I knew exactly which copy they got. And unfortunately, they grabbed the paperback, which makes sense because they got it really quick. And the hardback takes a little longer. It is just much nicer, far more worth it. But this person grabbed one of these paperbacks, and it was because of their lovely review and their constructive feedback, I knew I had to unpublish the paperback and try it again because Amazon goofed something up. So this person says, Divergent Magic has about 8 pages describing a praxis for organizing a chaos magic practice. We'll come back to that, which fits into a cycle of Disolver, Echo, or Resonar. Dissolving, echoing, and resonating. So chaos magic, yeah. I mean, if you want labels and whatnot, of course, chaos magic is an influence. I think it's just become such a loaded term because it kind of has its own current, despite what it's supposed to be. So if you want to do the genus phylum thing with magic, that's fine. I think to the ethos of chaos magic, this is definitely one of them. But I'm reticent to use the label just because of how it can be interpreted and enmeshed in different things. But yeah, so this is followed by a 4-page ritual design format. Here, let me blow it up. Sorry, this is my Substack. I'm going to be publishing a Substack introduction as well. So this is what I was working on. This is followed by a 4-page ritual design format. Where is it? With sections for rituals, title, date, intention, specters, talismans, sigils, and so on. That's the bulk of the book, serving as a place for you to formulate and record your rituals. Then, at the back of the book are 12 pages organized for you to lay out a sigil alphabet, which is kind of like an alphabet of desire, if you're familiar with Peter Carroll's work, which, yeah, if you're familiar with Austin Osman Spare's work, right? If that sounds like what you're looking for, this book will serve you well. The formatting of the ritual design pages flows well. The only criticism in terms of graphic design is that the margins probably should have been a bit larger, as it doesn't seem to account for the binding in the center of each page spread. And this is when my eyes widened and realized someone done goofed, because my copy of the hardback, the margins are great. Nothing bleeds into anything. We're all good. And that's when I discovered that the paperback got funky. So that's why I unpublished it. I'll work on it and repost it if people are really into the paperback, but it was always supposed to be a hardback to kind of take over the moleskin and durability of travel journals. So, but otherwise, this is an interesting approach to organizing a magical record, worth giving a look for anyone wondering how they might approach their own magic journals. See, I think that's absolutely wonderful, and I want to thank that person. Also, if you are that person, reach out to me. I'd love to give you a hardback, and I'm so sorry you got a paperback that was goofed. Hopefully it's still usable, which I think it is. Mine just came in today of the goofed paperbacks. Still totally usable. It's just not good enough. So I do apologize, and I would love to give you a hardback if you can reach out to me with some form of, I don't know, a receipt or something. I don't know. Some way to confirm that you bought it or wrote it. So I do thank you to that person. That was a very honest, probably too kind, 4-star review. So thank you. Now, I did want to take the time to share these wonderful words and observations from one Derek Hunter, who really encapsulated my reasoning for creating such a highly customized but organic schema. And he has shared some really beautiful, some would say far too kind words about the Divergent Grimoire, but I think his words illustrate a bit more about why this is a magical journal for praxis, for process, that cares not so much about the results, because the result is the process itself. You see, you won't need to muddle yourself with the results of a rite when you enjoy and love doing the rite anyway. Results will follow. Derek Hunter says, check out Keats Ross's newly released Divergent Magic Grimoire, and he lists the following bullet points. Excellent balance of giving enough to the reader/practitioner to get started, some structure, while also plenty of freedom to explore and follow their own path. Guidelines if they wish to use them. The easy to read and use visual structure is great. He avoids using the word results. Observations instead. Love that. That to me is the biggest difference between Divergent Magic and, say, Chaos Magic. Chaos Magic is results oriented. People can choose whatever they want to get the results, but the focus is still on the results with a capital R. Divergent Magic is more about the process with a lowercase p. This is what the occult world needs right now. The process over the results. People in the occult have to admit that they're outcasts rather than try to make it seem like they are success stories. Embrace their fuck-up nature. It's beautiful. It's Cassavetes R.D. Lang approach to the occult. So jump in for the ride. And I couldn't agree more with what Derek is saying. Someone, as said in the review that is on Amazon, there's a lot of mention of chaos magic, and I respectfully, and it is through respect, do not label chaos magic on a lot of my work. A lot of that is due to the current kind of muddled, oddly traditional aesthetic these days, but also because I believe the label is so broad, and if you want to do the genus phylum thing, I guess any kind of anarchic magic could be considered chaos magic. But he hits the nail on the head here by saying that chaos magic is a results-oriented magical current. And divergent magic really is about finding the magical ephemera within the mundane, with logging and being excited to customize your unique, individualized processes through the praxis itself, through the creation of your praxis, and discovering the lore that maketh you, you. So thank you, Derek Hunter. Again, far too kind, and I really appreciated that rundown. It really encapsulates kind of my intentions here, as so many other things do within the schema themselves, and within the music, the art, the habits, the breathing that I'm always trying to fortify, magically minded so. So there it is, listeners, followers of WeTheHallowed.org, followers of HauntManual.com, and of course, PragMagick, PragMagick.com. The Divergent Magic Anarchic Grimoire is there for you to utilize, organize, jot, flaunt, experiment, deconstruct, and spice up your life, one magical rite at a time, one highly customized magical rite at a time. If you'd like to share with me how you're using it, have any questions, again, pragmagic@gmail.com. And as I said, I am getting a community together, a study group of sorts, where we can share and hopefully compile recipe books of people's beautiful anarchic lore. With that said, check it out on Amazon. Look at the show notes. Check out the Liminalstream if you need some visual cues. Subscribe to hauntmanual.com via the Substack. Become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help support these magnanimous rites. And haunt on.